Let's now shift our attention to what also is happening around the world, because remember, the deadly coronavirus outbreak is showing no signs of abating. Overnight, the death toll has now climbed to 213 people, and there have been 2,000 new cases of infection across China. And this represents a steep rise in the death toll in comparison to what was reported on Thursday. 43 new casualties have been reported, and all but one of the casualties is said to be from the Hubei province. This has been dubbed as the epicenter of this viral outbreak. Now, this, of course, has raised some very serious questions about the effectiveness of the quarantine measures. Almost about 10,000 people in China are said to have been infected by the virus. The country is deploying another batch of military medical staff to combat the outbreak. The medics have been drawn from the PLA and also the Chinese Navy and Air Force, and many of them have got prior experience in dealing with the SARS outbreak and also the Ebola epidemic in Africa. The city of Zhejiang is on high alert due to its proximity to the Hubei province. There are 31 cases that are said to have been reported so far, and as a precaution, the popular Dongling Temple and also the Lushan cable car have been shut down for the visitors. Help is pouring in for the residents of Wuhan from around the country. In the Sichuan province, for instance, people shipped out close to about 50,000 kilograms of fresh vegetables to Wuhan. In the Jiangsu province, medical factory workers were called back from their spring break. They are planning to send out thousands of surgical masks, safety goggles and medicines to Wuhan. And now let's also take a quick update on the construction of the 2 hospitals in Wuhan. Workers in the Zhejiang province are working round the clock to produce the prefabricated boards. These boards will then be used to build close to about 600 wards. The hospitals are scheduled to be completed in the next 3 to 5 days. All right, now to add more perspective in terms of what's actually unfolding in China and how best is this crisis being dealt with there, we are joined in by our correspondent Grace Lee, who's joining us live from Hong Kong. Now, good afternoon to you, Grace. This of course, is a huge crisis in some ways. You know, this is something that's not been witnessed since the SARS outbreak back in the year 2002. And in terms of how the infection is in fact spreading within the Hubei province, it appears that the Chinese government has not been able to contain the spread of this virus.
Yeah, there's a lot of concern about what's happening in Wuhan right now as we hear some very concerning reports about what it's like on the ground right now. Wuhan residents say that they're running out of food and water. There's just not enough medical supplies. And also the fact that the Chinese government, local officials actually in Wuhan covered up what was happening there in terms of the spread of the virus for so long that it's gotten to this point where so many people are sick. Internationally, people around the world are trying their best to make sure that they don't catch this virus. Washing your hands is one way to do that. Covering your mouth, not putting your hands around your face is another good way to prevent this virus. Now, the WHO has announced that this is a global emergency, which boosts up kind of the urgency of people around the world to take care of themselves as this virus spreads.
And also there have been questions that have been raised in terms of the strategy that's been adopted. You know, Wuhan is said to be the size of the city of London. It's got 11 million residents. You know, putting a city of this scale in quarantine, is this the right strategy forward? Because in terms of the new infections, we saw 2,000 new infections that have been reported just in the last 24 hours. Would the Chinese administration not have done better if they had taken all those who were infected and also those people with whom these infected people could have come in contact with and quarantined them?
Yeah, as you know, this story is unfolding so quickly. Every single day we're getting new updates from the Chinese government, and the infection rate is so fast. And that's what's really alarming health officials around the world. The number of cases has already surpassed the SARS virus in the early 2000s, and that had a devastating impact on the world economy, and the death toll at that time was very, very high as well. So people are very scared about what might happen with this virus. In terms of the Chinese government, they have done this unprecedented quarantine of millions of people in the Hubei province. The WHO specifically yesterday was praising the Chinese government for making sure that this spread doesn't go global too quickly. We do have a lot of cases happening here and there around the world, but overall, most of the cases are in China still, and the death toll is only in China. So they are getting a lot of praise from the world about how they've handled the situation so far.
Absolutely indeed. And also in the city where you are presently in Hong Kong, there are said to be about 12 cases that have been reported so far. You know, how has this impacted the day-to-day life in Hong Kong?
Well, in Hong Kong here, it's like anywhere else in the world now. People lining up for hours to try and get face masks. Government workers are staying at home until February 2nd. Schools are shuttered until mid-February. Hong Kong is taking this situation very seriously because of the fact that 300 out of the 700 people who died during SARS in the early 2000s, those were all Hong Kongers. So they are trying to make sure that that situation doesn't unfold in Hong Kong again. But Hong Kong's workers are calling for the government to shut down its border with China completely, and that's what a lot of other countries, citizens in a lot of other countries are calling for, including Japan and South Korea.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed, Grace, for joining us and getting us all those insights into what is presently happening in the epicenter of this viral outbreak in Wuhan, and also how things are moving in Hong Kong as well.